I am a mental health professional who have worked in various capacities at Child Guidance. I've been in the extended assessment. I've been in IBHS now, which was once our wraparound service. I'm a licensed behavioral specialist. I work in outpatient as well as the Family First. So as you can see, I've worked in various capacities in Child Guidance, and I'm a part of the Diversity Council. Child Guidance has been in existence for over 65 years, helping children and families throughout the southeastern Pennsylvania area in the mental health services. And our moderator today, as you have heard earlier, is Leah Richmond, and I'm going to send it back to you, Leah.
Thank you, Trina. Good morning, everybody. As you heard me do my little vamping already, I'm Leah Richmond. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Child Guidance. And I'll be leading the conversation. So we are so thankful to have everybody here today. Today our guests are Upper Darby Mayor Barbarann Keffer, Damien Warsavage, School Director, Portia Kamara hopefully will be joining us. If she does, she's the Executive Director for the Multicultural Community Family Services. Ed Brown, one of our school directors in Upper Darby, and Harjit Singh, member of the Philadelphia Sikh Society. So we're really so thankful and honored to do this with you guys today for our very first look at a town and a city. So our roundtable discussion is going to consist of a series of questions and answers from our panelists. Each person will have around 2 minutes to talk for each question. As I said in the beginning, but some people might have missed it, the public chat is closed. However, you can definitely message me or Jennifer Toof. She's manning the chat as well. If you have questions or follow-ups for a speaker, we'll be moderating those, and some will say out loud, or if something is a follow-up for later, we will ask them after. So that's where we are right now. So I think we should just get into it because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we're going to start with for our first question, which is, what does safety look like for you? Can we start with Mayor Keffer?
Absolutely. So to me, safety in the community looks like clean streets that are well lit and easy to navigate. And I'm more focused on the infrastructure, right? Being in charge of the township. Safety also looks like a good communication between the township, which includes the police department and the fire department. Those are our two most visible, public safety departments, and the community. So we're working, and I've been in office as a mayor for just over a year, and we are working through this pandemic to try and do our best to reach out to and be part of the community. So our police department was very helpful when there were protests, or since the murder of George Floyd, and I think that breeds trust. It starts to breed trust and show that our community is together and that we support each other.
I love that. I also realized I totally skipped you having the opportunity to do an intro for yourself. Would you like to share anything other than that you are the lovely mayor of Upper Darby?
I've been on a council for 6 years before this. I'm really happy to be here. It's been a tough time with COVID. It's tough for everybody. And I think this forum and discussing some mental health is important. And I'm here. I'm pretty accessible, and I thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I thank you for your insights. All right, I'm gonna just move it with the people that I see. Damien, you want to share a little bit about who you are, and then also our question is, what does safety look like to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us all here this morning. My name is Damien Christopher Warsavage. I'm a lifelong resident of Upper Darby Township, and I am also a graduate of the Upper Darby school system class of 2003. I had the pleasure of not only going to, at the time, the smallest school in the school district, Aronimink Elementary, but also some of our most crowded in both Drexel Hill Middle School and Beverly Hills Middle School, moving on, of course, to Upper Darby High School. So moving that into my current role as an elected board member as of November 2019, it has given me the ability to have really unique perspective on some of those challenges that we do face as a group of electeds, because in a slight difference to how the township kind of works government-wise, the school district, the school board, essentially acts as a team of 10. And when we do make decisions based on the safety and the well-being of our students, to the question that's being asked, you know, what does safety look like to me? In my role as an advocate in the community, that means to me having a peace of mind. That means when making decisions as a person who is responsible for approving policy, that you do base those decisions on fact, on science, on different educated perspectives, because as 2020 has shown, any of us, especially us newbie electeds, including myself, the best made plans have the best intentions, but 2020 turned everything on its head. And so again, what does safety mean to me in the midst of all these other different moving pieces that I myself or my colleagues might not have been directly responsible for, such as the pandemic itself, racial upheaval? What could we control? Again, safety meant to me making sure that we were transparent with the decisions that we were making based on fact and based on a little bit of heart. So that's what safety means to me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, Portia. We're so honored to have you here. We're going around and starting with our first question. Ed, you're next on my list. Want to share a little bit about yourself and also the question, what does safety mean to you?
Certainly. My name is Ed Brown, and like Damien, I'm a proud school board director here in Upper Darby. I wear multiple hats, so I'm also proud to be a part of I help lead a nonprofit called Men of Action, Brothers of Faith, and we do a lot of community-based activities. In my spare time, I work full-time as a cybersecurity engineer, so I wear multiple hats. But safety means to me, in a physical sense, since I'm a school board director, safety is paramount. Because when kids are in a learning environment, they need to feel safe. Their parents need to know that they're safe so that they can focus on the business at hand, which is learning. In a theoretical sense, safety means that students feel safe to be able to express themselves in any way they see fit, without fear of reprisal, without fear of being bullied, and things of that nature. So safety has a physical realm to it. The infrastructure and making sure that that they don't come to harm. But in a theoretical sense, people need to feel safe within themselves to be able to be who they are and express themselves. So we have to, as school board directors, we have to attack it from all angles. That's what safety means to me.
Thank you. Harjit, am I saying your name correctly? I listened to the recording. Okay, great. Can you share a little bit about who you are? Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Harjit Singh, and I'm the active member of Sikh Gurdwara Committee, and I'm also working as a system administrator on Philadelphia Airport as a profession. And I have a couple of definitions for safety. Safety is a state of which hazard and condition leading to physical, psychological, or material harm are controlled in order to preserve the health and well-being of individuals and community. The respect of the value and the physical, material, and psychological integrity of individuals. So your personal safety is general recognition of avoidance of possible harmful situation or persons in your surroundings. Safety is a state of being protected from potential harm or something that has been designed to protect and prevent harms. The truth is, crime can make its way any neighborhood, no matter how safe it is. It's the time of economic distress, people are even more concerned about rising crime in their community. On the bright side, people can take plenty of preventive measures and protect their home and neighborhood, and they can take some steps. If you want to, I can go get more.
No, I think that's great. Unless you have other things you wanna add.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I think as you're all pointing out, safety is so dynamic. You know, there's so much that goes into it from such a variety of levels. Portia, thank you for being here. Do you want to share a little bit about who you are? And our first question, what does safety mean for you?
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I was transitioning from another Zoom and my coverage did not come in time to take my place. I am the director for the Multicultural Community Family Services. We are located in Upper Darby, and our mission, which is in the process of transition itself, I would like to say building communities to improve the health and safety of all of the residents that we served within the 5-county area, anyone who walks through our door. So if I was to take that mission and just put it into one sentence, it will be building healthy communities that contribute to improving lives. I am an immigrant. I'm from Liberia, West Africa, and I have resided in the United States. I like to say more years than I've lived in my own country. So when I think about safety, one of the first things that come to mind is, what does safety mean for me as an immigrant living in the United States? And when I think about that, I think of safety as finding a welcoming environment where I am embraced, where I feel valued, and where I can live my life without fears of being considered the other. Safety for me is a sense of belonging, and that also goes with a welcoming environment. Safety for me is a sense of feeling included in all that is taking place around me. Safety for me as an immigrant is a feeling of trust. Can I trust the person that is next door that I'm working with? Can I trust the person that is going to provide the service that I'm attempting to access? So safety really, in a nutshell for me, is my well-being.
That's a beautiful way of framing it. And I think that point of safety being trust as well, knowing that you can trust your community and those who are there to care for you and protect you, whether it's a school or a law enforcement officer or a politician, all of that is very key. So that leads us to our next question, which is about law enforcement. How do we foster strong relationships with law enforcement and the community? I'm just going to pick a random face. Let's start with you, Damien.
So the question is, how do we foster strong relationships between law enforcement and the community? To me, that means continuing the courageous conversations that Upper Darby already has been having between members of the community and the police force. I mean, speaking from my own personal experience, and this is unique because I come from and am born out of marginalized communities that have some very valid reasons to have some perceived distrust, or even have had some past interactions with aspects of the policing environment, but that might not have been as pleasant. But for me, my interactions with the police force have largely been very positive. I remember Officer Friendly visiting the elementary schools when I was a student, and that was my first exposure to how a police officer can be a positive asset to the community. I saw that person as an authority figure that could be trusted, not someone that I had to automatically feel that I had to combat. So even at a young age, I grew up understanding that positive, what I perceive to be a positive relationship, and I still do, between the community and the police force. Now, upgrade that a couple of decades, and we're in, current times, and we're considering all the different dynamics when it comes to different relationships. And again, with how our community has already been trying to tackle really tough issues and really things that have been percolating in the community for quite some time when it comes to understanding what exactly the police force is responsible for doing. A lot of people, even back when I was having discussions with former Superintendent Chitwood, I had an issue with some gun laws, and he made it clear, and deservedly so, the police force is responsible for enforcing or making sure that existing ordinances are enforced. They're not responsible for necessarily making them. And so real change would come from, in this case, township legislature, which would be council. But go back a little bit, because I'm going a little bit too far down a rabbit hole. The question again being fostering stronger relationships between law enforcement and the community, continuing the conversations that have already been happening around here. Because I can't say all of a sudden 2020 happened and then Upper Darby realized that it had a problem or had an issue with the relationship between the community and the police force. These conversations have always been happening. It's just now coming into the fore in a positive way, because now we're getting information out about what the real story is, about the positives of having a strong relationship with the community and the police force, the school community and the police force as well. I see nothing but positives coming from that.
Thank you. And Senator Kearney, I'm going to put you on the spot because we did talk a little bit about council, but I know that you are proposing police to collect race on stop data. Yes, is that something you can share a little bit? Because I know there is such an interesting intersection between, like you said, Damien, the laws and council and how we do that, and then all the way down to schools and children. So,
well, sure. Thanks, Lila. And pardon me for butting in on your wonderful panel that you assembled. I know every person on the panel, and I have the utmost respect for all the work that they're doing. We are in the process of getting ready to introduce legislation in the state Senate to basically create a statewide database that where officers would be required to give more information about all the traffic stops that they make and collect them in a way which they're not collected now. When I was the mayor in Swarthmore, I was really surprised to learn that each department was responsible for keeping its own records, and there was no set way for that to be really done. The only reason for keeping the records really was in the event that they might get audited by either the state police or the FBI. Our legislation would basically require each department to keep track of who they stop, and when they stop them, the reason that they're stopping them, and ethnicity and gender as well, because those are not necessarily things that people keep track of, and there's no one place we can go to look to see what's really happening. We have an idea about what's happening anecdotally from the stories that we hear and the things that we know that people have gone through. The idea of getting stopped for driving while black is real, but most departments don't bother to keep track of that. Even our state police were required to keep track of it, and they had said all along, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, that there was no evidence that they were doing that. But then when they actually got the data in, it looked really pretty bad for them. And all of a sudden they stopped collecting the data, which is not a wonderful thing. So, this shouldn't be that difficult. Right now, even the sort of standard PennDOT traffic ticket doesn't have a place for the officer to write down race on the particular ticket. But we're interested even more than the tickets. We're interested in the stops, and getting that, because data is powerful, and that's something that we can hopefully use as we work on towards building a better and more fair society.
Thank you. At Child Guidance, me personally, we love data. So I think that there's a lot you can do with knowing what's actually happening and then working to make change. So thank you. I won't put you on the spot again. Okay, Ed, can you talk about how do we foster strong relationships with law enforcement and the community?
Well, I think the key is communication. I think Damien alluded to, he likes to steal my thunder. So communication is key. And I recognize that. And that's why I facilitated a discussion with District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer Police Chief Timothy Bernhardt, our Director of Safety in our school district, Lou Gentile, and the Delaware County Sheriff, Jerry Sanders. I got them to agree to be a part of a panel. And then I had 53 African-American men, such as myself, be able to ask them questions about safety and just be able to pick their brains, because those are the gentlemen that are charged with keeping us safe and keeping our children safe. So I wanted to really get their establish a dialogue with, because we're the ones being hurt. You know, African-American men are a target. So I wanted to get everyone that I knew and have a dialogue. And these gentlemen availed themselves several times to have a dialogue, and they answered every question we had. And that's how I think you foster a better relationship, holding the people accountable that's charged with keeping us safe, and letting them know what our concerns are, what our issues are, and humanizing who we are, so that they can do their job and do what they're charged to do.
Thank you. And what a
I want to jump in real quick. Ed, was that recorded? Is that something that public can view?
No, it wasn't recorded. I did not, because I would have had to get the permission of all the participants, but I plan on doing it again, and I want to do a slightly different format because it'll be a public YouTube, but I plan on revisit. I got such positive feedback from the ones that I conducted, so there will be something else that's a little bit more public coming up. Thank you for asking that.
That is a good question. And thank you, Ed, and for everyone who participated. I know that that's hard and emotional labor and work, and that we really appreciate you. I'm just very thankful for everyone who was willing to have those conversations. Mayor Keffer, what about you?
So I'm excited to be able to talk about some things that we are doing in the administration, and maybe the most prominent one will be the new police officers, which will be sworn in, because we've reconfigured the Civil Service Commission, and we worked with council to change the qualifications for the police officers. In the very near future, we will be able to swear in the most diverse and the most qualified new officers ever in the township. And we're also working with Chief Bernhardt and Captain Oreskovich to revitalize the PAL program, Police Athletic League. It's been sort of, it's just been very quiet, I'll say, in the last few years. And that we're doing in combination with the building of our first and our new community center, which will be on 7,000 Walnut Street, just off of 69th Street. So we're hoping just to work with the police department to bring new programming into the township. And we're also at the same time, we're sort of restructuring in a very granular level. And this has to do with public safety too, but we have a parking enforcement department, and we are empowering them to do more of the public safety ticketing. You know, people who are parked illegally in the handicap spot or at a fire hydrant or around a corner, because previously that was sort of left for the police department to do. So we have expanded shifts into the early evenings. Our public safety ticketing has gone up, and it's shifted from, we don't want the police to have to do that. There's other things that they could do, right? And we do, like I said, we already have the public and parking enforcement department. And we're going to continue with programs that the departments had in the past, like the citizens police academies, which have been suspended in the pandemic. We'll continue them when we can. And just to piggyback off of what Damien and Ed talked about, communication. So I think we're doing a lot of things, and it's gonna, as we get out of the pandemic, they're gonna be more visible. So.
Perfect, thank you. Harjit, can we hear from you?
Yes, police community relationship are very important, and a strong relationship of mutual trust between police agency and community is key. They serve as critical in maintaining public safety and effective policing. Police officials rely on the operation of community members to provide information about crime in their neighborhood and to work with the police to deserve solution to crime and disorder problems. So it should be like more transparent and accountable. Transparency is essential and positive police community relationship. When a critical incident occurred, agency should be try to release as much as information about it is as possible, as soon as possible. So the community will not feel that information is being purposefully withheld from them. So that's the key. And other thing is like policing they can do the volunteer in your community, so that way people know them more and they will know them as not as a policing, they know you as a friends, and they can interact with the people in non-enforcement situation to do that. So that way people don't afraid from them, they treat them as a friend and not like they are something they have to steer from.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you. That I'm going to have Portia. I want to hear from you, but then I do have a follow-up question because I think that all of you have hit on that idea of communication, safety, and trust. Seems to be a lovely theme. So we'll circle back after that. But Portia, can we hear from you first? How do we foster a strong relationship between law enforcement and community? I think you're still muted.
Oh, sorry. When I think about fostering strong relationship between law enforcement and the community, the first thing that comes to mind for me is looking to law enforcement to have them see themselves as wanting to give up some of the, what I like to call exclusive power that they have, so that when they present before an individual, before a family, there is so much fear that comes with that presenting, because oftentimes when a police officer shows up, it is because something happened, and oftentimes it is not something good, right? So how do we begin to let go, we meaning police officers begin to let go of some of that power and give it to the community that they are serving? What does that mean? For me, it means, how do police officers begin to, or law enforcement begin to develop stronger or deeper relationships with members of the community? And what would that look like? And some of that has been talked on already. Developing those relationships definitely involves communication. It involves dialogue, right? It involves engaging the community, not only when a crime has taken place and now police officer or law enforcement is looking for the suspect or is looking for someone to report what has happened, but rather, how about as part of that relationship building and part of that engaging, perhaps, and part of letting go of some of that power or sharing it, is developing within its structure time set aside to meet with community members or community residents in conversations, multicultural dialogues, just talking about issues, going from one community to the other, from Stonehurst to Bywood to Highland Park, having it in gyms, in gymnasiums, talking about what are the issues that you are facing. This is what we see, and this is the way we look to solving it. But as law enforcement, it may be totally different from the way you see it as the community. What can we do together so that we can provide a safer environment for everyone that lives in this community? And in order for that to happen, law enforcement will have to take a step back and look at the strategies they are currently using, and then step forward with the courage to change it. And that's a little bit of what I mean when I say letting go of that exclusive power. Because the power for safety and maintaining community safety is not only in the hands of the community, of law enforcement, it is in the hands of all of us. And in order to truly be a part of that work, we too have to feel included. As not the thing that is come to when a problem has happened, but rather that thing or that entity that is a part of the work already in an ongoing way. And now we can solve it together. And that too is what safety is as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So my follow-up, and I think you all hit on it a little bit, and you can, I'm not going to do all of us because I definitely want to get time for our last question, but I'd love to hear from one or two of you. These conversations are so important, and the work that you're all doing sounds amazing to enhance these relationships. I want to talk about the perspective of those who might not view the police as safe, like you were saying, Ed, with the group that you put together. How do we foster these relationships knowing that there is an inherent fear of police for some people? Ed, I see you unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, Ed, you want to start? So go for it.
But that's why I, when I did my invitations for the people who would be able to question the panelists, you know, I cast my net far so that, you know, it wasn't everyone who has a kumbaya type attitude towards the police. It was people who had serious concerns or had bad experiences with police. I kept the dialogue respectful, but I still wanted them to be able to ask their questions and you know, express their concerns. And I wanted those leaders to hear it because I think they have their own perspective. And they come from, we all have different worldviews and come from different places. But I wanted them to hear from the people who are directly affected by the decisions that they make. And it was, I think it was a powerful dialogue, and they learned some things. I mean, I got thank yous from Mr. Chief Bernhardt and the other panelists, because they was able to gain new insight into some of the things that that will help shape some of the policies and procedures that they put in place. I think knowledge is power in this case. And I didn't want everybody who already had a positive perspective of those people in those roles.
Thank you. I saw Mayor Keffer, you were unmuted. Do you have something to add, or?
I was just going to add that I'm really looking forward to the new PAL program, because that will involve direct mentoring and direct contact of our police officers with our youth. So it's going to be a good start, and I'm excited to see it happen. And I just like thinking about it because I just think there's good things in the future here.
Amazing. Yeah, I think, Ed, it's great to hear that you brought all of those perspectives. I think that it's hard sometimes, always to hear that, but that's how you do the work, right? You got to dig into the nitty gritty, the spots we don't look at all the time. All right, so we'll move to our final question. What is the role of mental health in safe communities? Portia, I'm going to hand that to you first. Still unmute, still muted. There we go.
The role of mental health in safe communities is so important. When we think about community safety, when I think about community safety, part of me as a community resident, as an immigrant, as a mom of two boys and a girl, but my boys, when I think about community safety and I think about mental health, in many ways, I see them akin to each other. I see them, you know, there's a very strong interrelationship. So the role of mental health for me, meaning having access to mental health services when those services are needed by me and my family and by community residents, having access to mental health services that are culturally responsive to the residents that are seeking access to those services, meaning having access to mental health workers that know the culture or the cultures of not everyone, but the dominant cultural groups in the area, that have an understanding of what those cultural groups are, what the norms are, the practices, and have an understanding of what it would take or involve to support their mental health, It also means for me, the role of mental health in community or in public safety. It also represents to me being able to not only have access, but to have the services available within the environment. So that I do not have to travel. If I'm in Upper Darby, I do not have to travel to Chester, right? To find someone that looks like me or understand where I come from, or to meet a Liberian mental health or a clinician or an African clinician. I want those services in the community where I live. I want access to them in Upper Darby, or if I'm in Havertown, I want access to them in Havertown. And I think it is important that for all of us, community residents, and again, I speak perhaps more importantly for immigrants that reside in our community, it is important that we are also better able to understand the many benefits of the services that are offered. But then that puts a burden on mental health itself, right? What is our mental health system doing to help those that are coming from a culture that do not know what mental health is, or have always stigmatized mental health, right? And because of that, we never feel comfortable accessing that system. What is the responsibility that the mental health system has to ensure that these population groups have a more favorable understanding of what it is and how it, mental health services and supports can help them to live better, to live more fulfilling lives, more successful lives. So it becomes, again, this dyadic relationship between the mental health system and the community, and the responsibility by each to ensure that the information is out there and those who are accessing it are supported. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. It's really cyclical. And yeah, that's very, very valuable insights. Harjit, can you share your thoughts?
Yes. Mental health is heavily influenced on our quality of life. So it makes sense that mental health is just like physical health, need to be taken care of and maintained. And one way that it can be maintained through the finding of sense of community. Community can be defined in many ways, but when simplified down to its most important element, community is all about connection. Community is not just an entity or a group of people. It is feeling. It is feeling connected to others, feeling accepted for who you are, and feeling supported. Having connection can help us feel wanted and loved. So we are social beings, and we are not meant to live in isolation. Community is critical for us to thrive, especially for someone with mental illness who is already experiencing the common symptom of loneliness and isolation. There are some signs of mental illness, like excessive paranoia, worry, and anxiety, long-lasting sadness or irritability, external change of moods, social withdrawal, dramatical change in eating and sleeping pattern. Community provide many elements that are critical to mental health. If you have ever felt like you don't fit in, you know it can be lonely experience. Community provide you make a sense of belonging. Community provide you support. Knowing there are people who support you can help you feel cared and safe, and can benefit your outlook on life.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I very much agree. Mayor Keffer, what is the role of mental health in safe communities?
So mental health is an important component of public safety and public health. And right now, the township, we don't have the budget or the capacity to deal with it directly, but I am looking forward to the county as they develop from the ground up a health department. And I'm sure that mental health services will be a part of it. So, and I am concerned in general, I am concerned because of this pandemic. It's been almost a year, and it's been it's impacted everybody in different ways. And I think it'll be good. It's just good to take a deep breath and remember that we're all, suffering from it. But at the same time, hopefully 6 months from now, this will look a lot different. Kids can go back to school. We can be outdoors and socializing more. So to sort of touch on what Harjit had been saying about isolation. So
yeah, the burnout and the mental health impact for everyone. I don't know anyone who's feeling great right now. And I also think, circling back to what Portia said, we at Child Guidance, we've always been very aware of the systemic need for change and making mental health more accessible to diverse communities and everyone. And if anything, we're just going to have more need for, it's the pandemic after the pandemic, right? So, Damien, can you share?
Sure. So the question is, what is the role of mental health in safe communities? And to me, that comes really in two essential parts. The role of mental health in safe communities comes with understanding how that wraps around co-occurring behavioral health issues, including recovery. I myself am a youth enhanced certified recovery specialist. So that essentially means that I can provide peer-based support to youth, young people and their families regarding their various stages of the journey in terms of either active addiction or their lives in recovery. I don't prescribe anything or anything like that. I lead them to the information that best suits the goals that they have for themselves. Because to Miss Portia's point earlier, we can't just provide mental health supports just for the hell of it, pardon my language. It has to be targeted and it has to be specific to the communities that it's supposed to be addressing. But to Mayor Keffer's point that she made a couple of minutes ago, a lot of that we want to be able to do. I think it's second nature. No one here in this township would ever come out and say, we do not want to provide mental health support. That's just stupid. But it comes down to being able to fund that. And that brings me to my second point. The role of mental health in safe communities means educating the public on how to talk about some of these issues so that they can advocate for their equitable funding. When it comes to even providing mental health or recovery supports in an insurance setting, it's really hard sometimes to bill for some of those services because insurance companies either don't understand some of the services that are being described or given, or they want to be difficult on purpose and not pay for those services or only pay for them for a limited period of time. A lot of people don't actually realize that. And so if you advocate to your legislatures and let them know that, mental health services do need to be more fairly funded and paid for through insurance companies like they should be, just like dental health and just like any other health oriented purpose, makes sense. And also from a school director perspective, I can't tell you how many times in past budgets, I'm sure even before I started serving, where one of those items that people would ultimately, the administration would want to add more of would be school counselors, more behavioral health professionals. That's something many of us have wanted to see across both aisles for a very long period of time. And we know that it would be so helpful for us to have many more very uniquely qualified counselors than we do now. And the ones that we do have now are so wonderful and so amazing, but it comes down to funding. And in the school district, we are being underfunded by close to a clip of now, President Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, really close to $20 million a year. And that's just not acceptable. $20 million a year means that we could pay for more increased mental health supports for our students, because trust me, I just got done reading some of them this week for Read Across America Week. And while all of them are very happy and the teachers we are blessed to have them, teaching our students, to Mayor Keffer's point from earlier and Mr. Harjit as well, we're not meant to be in isolation. We're sociable creatures. It's really tough. And with a really strong mental health system that's equitably funded and is targeted specific to the communities in which it's supposed to meant to have an impact, it's a game changer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think such great points. And I think of humans, sometimes I say that we're like elephants or we're like orcas, you know, like we're animals at the end of it and we're social creatures. So yeah, I mean, the peer support, all of that, so very important, and the funding is key. Speaking of school funding and all that fun stuff, Ed, what are your thoughts about mental health?
Damien covered a lot of ground from a school perspective. I thought he did a great job. But I think mental health, and Portia touched on it, the stigma of it has to be removed. A lot of people ignore it and they don't accept it as a legitimate reality. But once they do, then that's where you get the courage to actually seek the professional help that's needed. And I think the cultural diversity adds another layer to it. So it's hard enough to reach them on the level that you need to communicate with them on, coming from a different perspective. So talking about something that's sensitive as mental illness, it's just even tougher to really address the cultural diversity and really get them the help, get them the help that they need. I think the male ego even has a part in it as a male. I know of friends or even family members who certainly would benefit from mental treatment, for mental health treatment. But some people are in denial. They're like, no, I'm okay. Especially in the COVID age, I think we all can benefit from some form of treatment, because I know I have my days where, you just want normalcy. You want the world that you knew, you want that back. You don't want to see your child in the same area, staring into a computer. You want them to have that social engagement and just have a sense of normalcy. So it's important. It needs to be funded. It needs to be recognized. It needs to be acknowledged. And then I think we can move forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's part of our diversity committee is working on this specific thing. And also, we have I think a global commitment as an organization of just everyone on this call to make those changes and talk about the need, because like you said, the stigma is still very, very big. So the more people are educated, the more we can make some changes. So finally, let's think about the future of Upper Darby. What do you want the future of Upper Darby to look like? I'm going to start with Portia again.
Oh, wow.
I know.
When I think about what do I want, what does my organization, Multicultural, wants the future of Upper Darby to look like, I would like to see Upper Darby, the future of Upper Darby, and I'm talking municipal and just community, move beyond multiculturalism. And what does that mean? Oftentimes when we think we are very we know all about diversity and about culture, because I can dance. I know this African music, this Latinx music. I can dance to it, or I can eat at this immigrant restaurant, or I can I know a little bit of the language. It's so much more than that. How much do we really know our neighbors? What do we know about where they come from? What do we know about that business owner next door? What conversations can I have beyond, I like that jollof rice. I'm being now a Liberian. When we talk at that level, I like to call it the multiculturalism level. How can we move from multiculturalism to cross-culturalism, where we're going across cultures, where we know more, we can have deeper conversations beyond the wonderful fairs that we have? Where can when I think about the future of Upper Darby, I'm thinking about Black, brown, white standing side by side and really feeling comfortable with each other, feeling safe within each other's spaces. being able to walk down Garrett Road, where about 90% of Garrett Road and the businesses on Garrett Road are immigrant owned, and be able to feel as free to go and shop there for something I'm in need as I would do at the Acme, right? Or as I would do at the Savon Lot. So the future of Upper Darby for me is wanting it to be a truly inclusive place, a welcoming place, a welcoming space, a place where I truly feel a sense of belonging, supported by the municipal government. And it's so wonderful to see our mayor here, supported by the mayor, by council, members of the school district, by all of the systems that are represented. I want that future to be, when I think about the schools, that when my children walk into those schools, they are not seeing predominantly white teachers, but they are seeing teachers that represent them. When I go into a counselor's office, I am seeing people that represent me or my children. When I meet with a clinician, when I go to seek mental health, I am seeing therapists that are culturally diverse. I am living within a community that is responsive to my needs, whatever those needs are on a continuum. An Upper Darby that will want to make me want to stay here.
I love
That
that.
will want to make my children to want to stay here. And that takes all of us working together collaboratively and not in silos, as oftentimes we are and we do.
It's beautiful. I would love to see that too. I think it's a great vision and a possible one. Mayor Keffer, what about you?
I see the future of Upper Darby Township is dynamic. My administration is investing heavily into grant writing. We have a lot of projects on, on the slate, including the community centers one. We are aggressively pursuing grants, and we've set aside some capital money to work on our parks. Observatory Hill Park and Chatham Park are the next two slated for heavy revitalization. We are working with PICO. They just gave us a lease agreement because we wanted to install a bike and walking path from Chapman Park up to Marshall Road. And then there's a spur that goes along Ruskin Lane to Long Lane. And we want to do this because we want to create public spaces where people in the community feel like they can spend time there. They want to bring their kids there. We're going to have splash parks, and we're going to have some more outdoor basketball parks too. So I'm really excited. It's a lot of work, but the resources are there at the state level and also through our bond financing, so that we can really reinvest in the community and make it somewhere people want to move to, where they want to do business in, and where they want to stay and raise their kids.
Oh, I love that. I will definitely be bringing my daughter to a splash park. She loves water. So that sounds great. Harjit, what about you?
Yes, if we see that the Upper Darby is the most diverse community, I think, in the Pennsylvania. We have maybe 100 different countries, immigrant people lived in this community. And one thing I want to share, there's a data. It's not good. The chance of becoming a victim of either violent property crime in Upper Darby is 1 in 50. Based on FBI crime data, Upper Darby is not one of the safest community in America. Relatively to Pennsylvania, Upper Darby has a crime rate that is higher than 80% of the state's cities and towns of all sizes. So we need to improve all these things, so that way everybody living in Upper Darby feel safe, and that will be encourage more community to live in the Upper Darby. So we need to be enforce our more strict rules or everything, so that way citizen of the Upper Darby community is feeling more safer.
Yes,
Uh,
it's very important. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. That's it.
Oh, okay. No, that's, I mean, it's the things we have to look at sometimes are the hard truths, right? I think that's very important to share. Ed, what about you?
Well, if you know anything about me, I'm an optimist. So I think my vision of Upper Darby is being realized. I think our school board is diverse, and it looks like the community. When you look at our board, you see a representation of our entire community, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be a part of that. And as Portia stated, every aspect of our community should look that way. We're working on getting more diverse teachers so that students have teachers that look like them. So that's an important initiative that we're working on. But I think we are establishing a true partnership with the government, the township, the police, all in the community, the school board, the school district. I think we are establishing that. We've had an initiative called Upper Darby Rising, where we've had these conversations with all aspects of the community, and the different groups of the community came together, and it's going to, what's going to be born out of that is a community advisory board that will have the opportunity to work and make the community a better place. And it will be a representation from all aspects of the community. So I think that's a powerful thing. So I think my vision is being realized. I'm an optimist. I'm proud to be a part of this township. I'm proud to be a leader in this township. And, I think the goal is to make this community a better place. We all live here. We all love this community. And the goal is to not just be a sideline participant, but to actually to roll up your sleeve, have some skin in the game, and work to make your community better. I think we all have that obligation. I know I have children that I raised in this community. My daughter's 13 today, as a matter of fact. So, I think I have an obligation to make this community a better place for her. I think I have an obligation to make the school district as best it can be for her and all of the children in our district.
Happy birthday to your daughter. But yes, I love I'm also an optimist, and I think it's really wonderful and power, and really kudos to your community for building a school board that's really representative of your community. I said community twice in that sentence, but that's a big thing. It's not always the reality. So I know that takes hard work. Damien, you want to wrap it up for us? What do you want the future of Upper Darby to look like?
Not to be glib or cute about it, the future's already here. And we have to embrace and understand that, because a lot of the things that we're doing now aren't necessarily going to benefit all the people living block to block now. We're talking about planting seeds, because even the trials and tribulations that we're going through now, I've been brought up to understand that things only last for a season. And so once those difficulties pass, we have to then, from a school board perspective, we are in the process of doing a lot of wonderful things with our infrastructure, actually putting money back into some very aged buildings, many of which I've attended as a student. So I have literally firsthand experience of how some of these facilities had been before the community was gracious enough to make those needed adjustments in our budget, so that we could improve our bathroom facilities, so that we can build new schools, so that we can build additions, because that will benefit the future of Upper Darby, which means bringing our kids back into schools that are within their neighborhoods, within walking distance. It means making sure that we're breaking down barriers to educational opportunities that otherwise might not have been present had we not asked for different perspectives, or were courageous enough to have those conversations to break down those walls to begin with. And like I said before, the question ultimately was, what do I want the future of Upper Darby to look like? Again, the future is already here. The future is a kid growing up in the school system, having been homeless at one point, coming back, and in less than 5 to 7 years after graduating and being homeless, buys his own house under the age of 25, a single home in Upper Darby, because the community means that much to him. And he's, to President Brown's point from a couple of minutes ago, skin in the game, because it's not easy growing up in Upper Darby. And I tend to have a very romantic view of a lot of things, as the community knows me for, but I'm a realist as well. And it's not always easy growing up Upper Darby, but it is what you make of it. And because I knew my future included a safe place for my family to be, a safe area that I wanted my husband and I to raise our future kids in, there is no other alternative. There is no better choice than Upper Darby and the future that everyone's helping us create together. So that's what it means to me.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. All right. Well, we're at time, and I just want to thank you all for this incredible discussion. Trina, you want to close this out? Oh, you're still muted, I think. And there you go.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, so this has been an enlightening segment and very educational. We thank you and everyone for joining us today. If you want to learn more about our services, please go to our website, which is www.cgrc.org, www.cgrc.org. I'm sorry. I was right the first time.
Yeah, you're good. CGRC.org. You don't even need the W's.
And if you have any questions or would like more information regarding all that has taken place today, please send an email to us at info@cgrc.org. We are happy to forward questions to our speakers directly. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great and awesome weekend. Please be safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys, truly.
Thank you.
Truly,
Thank you. This is amazing. Bye, all.
Bye-bye.